Hello, and thank you for tuning in once again to the Baseball Show right here on Nickel Press TV. I am Andy Singleton. That is Rob Lifshitz. We are here today to talk 3 prospects with you. We hope you've been enjoying everything we've been doing up to this point. We are the fastest growing fantasy baseball show on YouTube, so I think the results are showing that you guys do approve of these videos we're putting out. We want to thank each and every one of you for doing that. Please continue to give us the thumbs up by liking this video. Please continue to leave your comments. Add us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. You can check Ralph's writing out at Rasball. You can see my stuff in Reddit. I do a Wednesday AMA there. So you need us, you can find us. We want to thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to check the player library where you can see everybody we've covered to this point. After this week, it will be full of 90 players, all alphabetized, isolated on their own, everybody we've covered in all of these episodes. So you can just skip around and go straight directly to the player you want, and that's it. Nobody else you have to filter through. Our goal is to go to about 120 players with the series, 125 in that range. And then we're going to get into our weekly format for in-season stuff, where we'll be having random guests throughout the season from throughout the industry, other writers, other podcasters. You know, some you'll know, some you won't. And I guess that's going to sum up what I have to say in the beginning here. So once again, thanks to everybody who's been tuning in. And let's just jump into something that we both love to talk about, and that is prospects. We're going to start with Victor Robles. Now, I just want to say back the truck up. I wanted to use a word there that rhymes with truck, but I'll refrain. Now, I am all about the allure of a potential stud prospect who can contribute to all categories, but I've also been around prospects long enough to know not to fall in love with any of them either. He's 4th on Ralph's Rasball list. He's 6th on our friend Michael Halpern's imaginary brick wall top 200. He's unanimously in the top 10 across all outlets in fantasy baseball. He's basically become untouchable in dynasty leagues. Now, I like him. I like him a lot. The kid hit 24 homers, stole 18 bases in the same season as a 19-year-old. But the batting average caught up to him in 2016. He hit just 262. Is it something he can't overcome? No. But is it something that maybe should give you a little pause? Possibly. We'll see. He's still very young. He's only 19. The real thing that you have to absolutely love about this kid is that he doesn't strike out at a high rate. He struck out only 16% of the time last year. He also knows how to recognize a walk. He walked 7% of the time. These are great numbers for such a young hitter that's putting up the power-speed combo at such a young age. Now, my biggest question is how quickly can he rise? And is he the Bryce Harper replacement when Harper leaves in free agency for the Yankees?
I think that Washington thinks that he's the Bryce Harper replacement once Harper leaves to go to whatever team he decides to leave and sign with, whether that be the Yankees or whoever else. I'm not gonna give the Yankees that one yet, you know that. But yeah, I love Robles. You know, obviously, you saw where he was ranked in my list. He was 4th overall, behind Benintendi, Moncada, and then Austin Meadows. You know, I just think the five category allure, 6 category allure with this kid is just too much to pass up. He was 18 into 19 all season. He turns 20 in May, actually. So he's going to enter this season at 19 as well. For as young as he was and the level of competition he was facing and the sort of things that he did from a power speed combo and the batting average, all in all, when you put it in context, wasn't all that bad. I think the fact that his value in real life is probably just as high as it is in Dynasty, if not higher. This was a player that Washington really sort of, put their feet in the ground and weren't going to budge on, whether it be for Chris Sale or for McCutchen. We heard that was really the sticking point in the McCutchen deals. They would not move Robles, and I don't blame him. He's got all the tools there. He's got a pretty clear path to the major leagues. We'll see what happens with Bryce Harper. This could be the built-in replacement, but I would not be shocked if come July midseason, if this kid is number 1 almost unanimously across all prospect lists, particularly for fantasy baseball. He's great.
I thought you were about to say by July if he's up in Washington getting every day at bats. That's what I was crossing. Yeah. Okay. It just seems like like I said, I'm not saying I don't like the guy, and I don't think he has immense potential, but it is through the roof how people are talking about him throughout dynasty circles, throughout just fantasy baseball in general.
Absolutely.
It is insane how much love and hype this guy has unanimously. And, like I said, I like him a lot. I'm just a little bit cautious, and I'm not going to, sell my house for him.
I am. I'm going to sell my house to purchase some stock in Victor Robles. But what surprises me though is there's a lot of people who rate Brendan Rodgers higher than Robles, and I'm not quite sure why.
The position,
similar age. Yeah, similar age. He's probably going to move off for short anyway. But it's all about the production. If he puts up that sort of production, I don't care where he plays. And I think that the power speed that's there is greater than what you're getting with Rodgers. And there's plenty of shortstops now. There's plenty of shortstops and second baseman because he could end up at second base depending upon what the Rockies decide to do with Trevor Story.
I don't disagree with that, and I think it actually helps Robles more being an outfielder because you need three of them, and sometimes it gets lost with how shallow the position is with
or five in certain leagues.
Absolutely. I was going to say something I forgot. I was going to say, let him do this in Double-A, and I will really, really be buying in. By that time, it'll be too late, of course. But he's being talked about like the second coming of Jesus right now, and to me, that's just a little bit exaggerated. And I don't mean what I just said; I mean how people are talking about him. But moving on, Daniel Palka. This guy has shown solid and consistent power now over 4 levels in the Arizona Fall League, yet nobody's talking about this guy. Now, he is a bit older at 25 because he did go the college route. He's not much of a speedster, although he did swipe 24 bases in 2015. He whiffs entirely too much, but in today's game, that's not necessarily to a player's detriment. Another thing in his favor, he plays in Minnesota, where no one has a position on lockdown. So maybe he can push his way in there. Now, he's hit 22, 29, and 34 bombs over the last 3 seasons. Ralph, is it conceivable he sees time in 2017, is a viable option, and could he actually be like an Adam Duvall revelation this season? Or are we looking at Dylan Cousins' cousin?
Yeah, well, I don't think he's Cousins' cousin because he certainly doesn't run enough to be Cousins' cousin. But there are similarities. He strikes out a lot, just like Cousins, but he has a good walk rate, just like Cousins. So there is some stuff that I would come back to prospect than Palka is. But the power is monstrous. And this is a similar profile to what we saw with Adam Duvall, and obviously we saw what he did last season. I don't expect him to repeat that, and I don't think Palka is going to end up being as good as Duvall. But he's certainly a true 3 outcome hitter. He's going to walk a lot. I think, his walk rates, between Double-A and Triple-A last year were like 11%, 9%, I think, when he went up to Triple-A. But he strikes out a lot. This is a 30% K rate guy. He could come up and he could be swinging and missing as much as Miguel Sano. With him, Buxton, Sano in the lineup. If that happens in Minnesota, in DFS, start your pitchers against these guys because they're going to swing and miss a lot. But he has monstrous power. He has major league power. So, Minnesota, a place like Oakland, some of these sort of second division type of teams, he's certainly a guy that could end up in the right side of a platoon there and, who knows, find his way into 400, 500 at bats and smack 25, 30 homers. I mean, it's possible. He has the ability to do that. It's going to come with a really bad batting average. If you're in points league where strikeouts count, he's going to hurt you there too. But in deeper dynasty leagues, 18 teams plus, I'm in a lot of those leagues. He's a guy that I took a shot on, figuring you can get him for cheap. And, there's still a chance that he comes up and has 4 or 5 really good power seasons in the majors.
Yeah, and the other nice thing is we're talking about him as an outfielder, but he has played a little bit of first base, and he's also in the DH league. So it's very, very, very conceivable that he finds his way into regular at-bats in 2017. And with the type of power he possesses, again, the strikeouts are not necessarily a hindrance in today's game. So if he's putting out a homer every other day and striking out 3 times in that same span, he's going to find himself in the lineup on a daily basis. And you could be looking at this year's version of Adam Duvall in that regard. So I think he's somebody that you definitely should be taking a gamble on at the very least, because you're going to get him for relatively cheap. The next guy has made it to the majors, and unfortunately, I think that's to his detriment. I'm talking about Gavin Cecchini, who is the younger brother of Garen Cecchini. He's a shortstop in the Met system, and I'm just not sure where this guy gets a shot as an everyday player, and that's why I say it's kind of to his detriment that he's reached the majors already. Another reason why you dream big on prospects, but you don't sell your house for them. Even if they progress through the system and make it to the bigs, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to force their way into a regular role. Now, he's up against Asdrubal Cabrera, who I think is underrated. He's got Jose Reyes there, who could still be a threat. He's got, David Wright's back to contend with if it remains healthy. That's less at bats in the lineup. He's got Wilmer Flores, who's become Mr. Utility, super utility at that. Plus Ahmed Rosario, who was already being touted as the future of the organization. So I'm just curious, where does a glorified utility player have value in fantasy leagues? The other caveat is that, to the downside again to all this is that by being promoted, he's actually lost value in dynasty leagues because, when he's 19 playing a double-A, there's reason to believe still, and maybe, you can snag someone in a trade. But now that he's cracked the MLB threshold, you get a better sense of what he's going to be at this level, and just people aren't buying. Nobody's going to trade you something for what amounts to be a waiver wire player. I'm just curious, am I selling this guy too short? Because he's basically turned himself into a 300 hitter over the past few seasons. He doesn't strike out. He draws walks. I mean, he's a contact guy. He can actually push his way into a regular and relevant role. Do you see that happening? Is that possible?
What?
Can he actually do that?
Sorry. I fell asleep because I thought you were talking about Gavin Cecchini. I have no idea where this guy plays, number one. Number two, and I think if you look at my rankings, this is pretty obvious. I want a sexy tool. I want somebody that has big power or speed, or at least a balance of the two. He doesn't really run that much. He doesn't have almost any power. I mean, I wouldn't say that he's like Juan Pierre, but he's maybe a 10 homer guy. The batting average and the hit tool are absolutely what's going to carry him. He knows how to take a walk. He does not strike out much. He's got an excellent contact hitter. That's a ball guy. I think on a lesser market, a lesser team, a team that has less options in the middle infield, he's certainly somebody that could be a solid 2-hitter, in the National League, team that plays the hit and run and that sort of thing, because he does make such good contact. Do I think he's a second coming of Daniel Murphy? I don't, though he is a singles hitter. I don't know where this guy fits in, and I had taken a chance on him in some of my deeper, like 18 to 30 team leagues, and I sort of sold him off as a secondary piece, hoping that people look at the batting average and were like, oh yeah, I'll take a gamble on this guy, and it's typically what I ended up doing. So I'm just not that excited about Cecchini. His brother was a bigger prospect at one point. He flamed out. I know he was in the Brewers organization last time I checked, but I sort of lost track of him with a lot of players I'd rather pay attention to. So I don't know what happens with Cecchini. I think he's somebody that the Mets should probably look to package to add another reliever, or a piece, platoon bat, just something here or there, because they have a lot of redundancy at that position.
Yeah, to me, there are a lot of other prospects that are probably available on your waiver wire that I'd rather have on my team than him as a placeholder right now. There's so much that has to happen for him to realize a major league role. I think he's a major league player. I think he has a role on the right team. He could be like a Joe Panic kind of guy that if given the right opportunity in the right situation at the right time, he could emerge as an everyday guy. But there's so much that has to happen between now and then that it's just you're holding your breath for something that may never materialize. Yeah. And, you're not really going to get anything for it. I wouldn't trade anything for him in a dynasty league. So I doubt you're going to get anything for him, which means your only option is to cut bait. So if you're watching this show, because this is probably the most anybody's talked about Gavin Cecchini in the last 2 or 3 years, and you have him on your roster and you're wondering, should I cut him? Well, this is the episode for you, because we're here to tell you, yes, you should cut him. Not any slight to him as a person or as a player, just in the fantasy aspect, it's doing you nothing. It's an albatross on your roster. It's an anchor, not in a good way. Part ways. If he resurfaces down the road, if he gets traded, as Ralph mentioned, hey, there you go. Pick him up. He'll be there. He'll be on the waiver wire. Be the first to grab him. But for now, no, there's no reason to. So with that being said, let's move on, which means we're at the end of the show. So we're going to move on to saying goodbye. And thank you for tuning in. You've watched the baseball show on Nickel Press TV. If you are not a regular, if you have not yet subscribed, please do so now. Please give us the thumbs up, which means you like the video. Leave your comments. If you didn't like what we did, please tell us why in the comment section. We can take it. We're grown-ups. We're adults. And we, as I mentioned, are the fastest growing fantasy baseball show on YouTube. So we want to thank you. We really appreciate the support. Check us out on any social media. Check the Player Library playlist. You can find everybody we've done individually. And if you prefer audio, don't forget, look for us on iTunes. Just search Nickel Press TV. That's going to do it for Ralph. I'm Andy. See you next time.